everyone, welcome to Girls Guide to God. My name is Alexa. I'm the host of this podcast. While it is called A Girls Guide to God, this podcast is truly for everybody. Maybe you want to learn and grow in your faith and you want to grow in your relationship with the Lord. Maybe you want to get more of the word in and you want to get it kind of broken down for you. Or maybe you're not a Christian and you're like, what even is Christianity? This podcast is for everybody who wants to learn and grow in their faith. But yeah, I'm hoping to really base this whole episode, A Girl's Guide to God, on the Word, on the Bible. And I hope that everything I'm saying is backing up the Bible. And the Bible is backing me up, because if it wasn't, then I'm doing something wrong. So yeah, I'm really excited about this first episode, and the topic is idols, which is something really, really big. And it's kind of a bold idea for a first episode, but I'm really excited. So yeah, I'm just gonna get into it. So what is an idol? And I literally Googled the definition of this. But an idol is an image or representation of a god used as an object of worship. By the way, lowercase g. Our God is an uppercase G. So something that I've kind of discovered or found out is that humans just feel like a desire, a need to worship. And I'm saying all humans, not just Christians, not just religious people, all humans. And I saw this a few weeks ago at a Taylor Swift concert, the Eras Tour. And her music is not religious at all. And the people there, religious or not, so they were just raising their hands to her music. And her music is not Christian. It's not any other religion. Religion's kind of worship music. It was just pop music. And I saw people around me raising their hands. They were giving their all. I saw some people closing their eyes and holding their hands out like this, how I would have at a worship session. By the way, you guys, I love worship. Side note. But they were full on and if you're physically watching me right now, they were this. They were it was crazy. But yeah, that's when I realized people literally have a desire and to worship and praise. And then I thought about it and I was no, we were literally made to worship and praise. Our purpose was to worship the Lord. So that kind of made more sense to me. So I wanted to talk about the first time I'd ever seen idols in the Bible. And the first one I thought about was Exodus. And I'm going to read Exodus chapter 32, the golden calf. So I grew up in Sunday school, so I know this story, the Moses, the plagues, the parting sea, like the back of my hand. But I'm just going to give you guys some context if you've never heard about it. Okay, I'm going to read it. So God has just used Moses to save the Israelites from their slavery in Egypt. So now they're not in Egypt anymore. And he did this through these miracles, such 10 plagues, pillars of cloud and fire, water from the rock, bread from heaven. I mean, there's literally bread raining down from heaven, bitter water made sweet. Parting the Red Sea. I don't know if I said that. Let me know if I missed anything. Old Testament God was, wow, he was just doing miracles left and right. But yeah, so basically, these people are kind of camping out in the wilderness while Moses went up to the mountain to talk to God. And this is actually where God gave Moses the 10 Commandments. But Moses was gone for 40 days, and the Israelites got really impatient, and they really wanted to go to the promised land. Here's what they did, and this is Exodus chapter 32, verse 1. When the people saw that Moses delayed to come down from the mountain, the people gathered themselves together to Aaron and said to him, "Up, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who has brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." And basically what they did next is they took their jewelry, their earrings and their rings made of gold, and he basically melted them, and they made this golden calf. And they referred to this golden cow, essentially, that they made, that they totally created as a god, or gods. And by the way, this is lowercase g. And what really stood out to me from this whole verse was that they were so impatient. I think so many people are So many people now, so many people then are like, I don't believe in God, you know. If God, and this is mostly non-believers, but some Christians do, like, oh, like, if God showed me if he was real, if I saw a miracle, if something amazing happened to me, then I'd become a Christian. Then I'd give my life to Jesus. Then I'd start following Jesus. Then I'd do this and that. And, like, here God is, 10 plagues. Bread is literally raining from the sky. Water comes out of a rock. The Red Sea parts. There's pillars of clouds and fire, and these people are doubting and they're impatient. And that just kind of struck me as crazy. And here they are, they're so impatient. And because, again, God controls time and God controls timing, these people wanted to control timing. They're like, let's just control something. Let's just make a golden cow and call it a god and worship it, and let's give it burnt offerings. Let's just, yeah. And also, I just wanted him to point out the first commandment that God gives us. I'm actually gonna go flip to that so I get the exact words. Exodus chapter 20, verse 3. You shall have no other gods before me. And here these people are, so impatient, so much doubt that God's not going to bring him to the promised land, literally called the promised land because, you know, it's a promise, that they start to make a god that won't do them anything, you guys. And I'm going to kind of skip along here, but I'm going to read out of verse 7 now. And the Lord said to Moses, go down, for your people, whom you brought up out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. And I'm going to kind of use that as an intro, that idols corrupt us. So I'm going to go to Matthew, I think it's Matthew Matthew chapter 7, 26 through 27. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. So when I was thinking of this episode and idols, this was one of the first verses besides the Exodus one that I thought of. Whoopsies, just tapped the microphone. Because you know, when you're idolizing something, it's your first priority, it's number one. And you're building everything on it. Essentially, that's your foundation. When you start to give your time to it, when you start to give your love, your desire for it, you're slowly, bit by bit, you're building yourself on that bad foundation. And you really can't rely on that foundation because it's not God. Again, the thing about idols is we worship them as if it is God, or the person, a thing is God, but it's not. And we expect whatever that thing is to be like God, to be our firm foundation. You guys, by the way, I love this, build your house on the rock, Matthew 7, partly because of the song Firm Foundation. But yeah, where was I? Go, if you've never listened to that song before, it's a classic, you're missing out. Go listen to it. I love that song. But yeah, I don't even know what I was saying. Right, when we build ourselves on that becomes our foundation. An idol cannot be our foundation, because our foundation is meant to be God. And if we're treating an idol like God, it's not God. The idol is not going to love us. It's not going to care for us. It's not going to fill our heart, fill our desires, our hopes, our dreams, help us like God can. And we're going to end up disappointed and broken and hurt if we just expect these idols to do what God can do, because we're worshiping these idols like God, but these idols aren't God. And then on the brighter side, I'm going to read Matthew chapter 7, verse 24 through 25. Everyone who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on the house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. I'm just going to read that last bit again. But it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. Guys, one of the best verses. yeah. So I think back to the other point, idols really start to become a problem when you build your foundation on them, again, instead of God. And what that means is God is no longer your first priority. God is no longer your number one. Instead, you're putting this idol, this false God, essentially, this thing you're trying to put in place of God as number one. And what that's doing is that as you're kind of putting this thing in between you and God, and that's kind of gonna like that's not gonna be any good. It's gonna separate your relationship from God, and you yourself are gonna feel it. You're gonna feel closer. You're gonna feel farther from God, and you might even feel guilty. And you're like, why do I even feel guilty? You know, like what I'm doing is not even wrong, but it's pushing you farther away from God. And again, I'm gonna like repeat what God said. These idols will corrupt you. They will, yeah. So now that we've established like, oh, idols are so bad, what are idols? And I wanted to define this because I know there's someone listening to this podcast and they're like, okay, idols are bad, I get it, but like I don't have an idol, I don't obsess over this. But and you may not, who am I to tell you what your idols are? Only you and God know that, but I'm just here to give you guys some examples. I'm actually really proud of myself that I thought of these, because a lot of people wouldn't call these idols. They'd be like, yeah, it's a big part of my life, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's an idol. It's an idol. Okay. Desire to perform, and I'm talking like academically, athletically. I want to come back to this later. But yeah, I feel like so many people, especially this day and age, and especially like I know people of different grade levels, even in middle school, you guys, from different schools all around the area. So I know it's not just my school, but like they feel this enormous pressure, maybe from their parents, maybe from their peers, maybe from their teachers, maybe from themselves, to just be perfectionist and get the top grades. And athletically, I know so many athletes that are like, I have to be the best, I have to be the number one pitcher. I use that example because I used to play softball. But yeah, I think, yeah, a lot of people, they need to be number one, they need to get all A's. Yeah. Social media status, how many followers you have, how many likes, how many views. A similar one, approval and validation from peers, from friends. You want popularity. And I really like this one because this kind of describes all of the idols I have listed here. And yeah, so if this isn't your idol, I'm gonna say self-image is a big thing. You know, you worked really hard on yourself, on how you look, on how you feel, to get others to like you. And you might be like, Alexa, no, I didn't. Like, I worked hard on myself to improve my self-confidence, to feel better about myself. And I'm gonna say there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're truly obsessing and idolizing over it, no. So I want to just say, this is for every single idol I just listed. And there's more idols that I haven't talked about here, but yeah, this goes for every single idol. This really becomes a problem when your identity is based on these idols. And I'm going to go back for desire to perform academically and athletically. If your self-worth is based on your grades, then that's not good. Like, I'm a failure if I don't get 100%. I'm a failure if I'm not the best shortstop. I'm a failure if I didn't score 20 goals this game. And I hear this a lot nowadays, like, don't base your self-worth on those things. Don't let that determine who you are. And yes, that's so true, but like, I want to push that deeper, because I think there's so much more to don't base your self-worth on that. But I just want to say what your self-worth and your identity should be based on. I want to say that your identity and worth should be found in being a child of God. I'm just gonna let that sit there for a second. People don't get how amazing that is, like being a child of God. And everyone is a child of God, Christian or not. Like, I'm a child of God, you're a child of God, we're all children of God. And I don't think we realize how awesome that is, and how like and how worthy we are, because he loves us. Not because we're good at certain things, but because he loves us. Yes, we're worthy. You guys, he left the 99 to find us. When we come to him or we come back to him after turning in a wrong direction, he literally is throwing a party for us. He's telling all his neighbors, I found my coin. He's telling his fellow shepherds, I found my lost sheep. He's literally throwing a party for us because we came home and we came back to him. How cool is that, you guys? I'm going to ask you guys 2 questions. If you forget everything I said on this podcast, please don't forget everything I said. But if you do, I just want you to remember this and ask yourself these 2 questions. So number 1, I have, are you at peace with your identity? And the second question is your identity found in Christ? Okay, now that we've gone through that, I'm going to kind of take a step back. Now that we know these idols are corrupting, as God literally told us in Exodus, what do we do instead? Is recognize like who you are. Again, you guys, if you take anything away from this episode, take those 2 questions, but also you belong to God and you're a child of God. We're all children of God. We all belong to God. And that's who you are. That's who we are. And who you are shouldn't be determined by, if I ask you, who are you? And obviously, most people, if I say, who are you? You're going to tell me your name. And you're not going to be like, oh, child of God. I belong to God, which very cool if you do, by the way, but most people wouldn't do that. If I say that, and you tell me, yeah, I have 1 million followers on TikTok. Yeah, I'm a straight A student, which, guys, very cool if you are, but that's not where your identity should be found in. I just want you guys to think about that. Who are you? Are you at peace with yourself? Is your identity found in the Lord? Something I think is really, really important is trusting God means surrendering. I really want to do a future episode on surrendering because it's so much more like surrendering is such like a simple word, but there's so much about it. Yeah, but trusting God means surrendering. And I want to say, back to the Israelites, they did not trust God. They didn't trust his timing. They didn't want to wait. They doubted God. That's why they made the other idol. Because God's timing, again, guys, I also want to do an episode on God's timing. But yeah, God's timing is something we can't control, right? God's timing is perfect. God's timing is perfect, right? But the Israelites doubted him, and they were like, it's too slow. It's too slow for us. And for many of us right now, that's so true. We're like, God's timing is so slow, right? And sometimes I think that too. I'm gonna be so honest. I want this podcast. I want to be really honest here. But God's timing was something they couldn't control. So what did they do instead of waiting? They doubted. Right? They couldn't control God's timing, so instead they created an idol. They created a golden cow, you guys. And they created something they could control, which, again, was a golden cow made out of their jewelry. By the way, you guys, I'm really proud of these necklaces. I made them both. But surrendering means that God is in control. And I feel like surrendering is also so hard because, you can say you surrendered something. I surrendered this to God. I surrendered my anxieties to him. I surrendered my Saturday to him. Or I'm going to surrender this, or I did surrender this. But have you really? And I'm not saying have you really, I'm saying no you didn't, but so many times I tell myself I surrender that, and I pray out loud, because I feel like when I pray inside my head all my thoughts get really jumbled. But yeah, I pray out loud and I'll be like, God, I surrender this to you. I surrender the outcome of this situation to you. I surrender my annoyance for this person to you. And sometimes it's just words, that I want to be true. I don't really surrender, but I think learning to truly surrender and be like, God, you're in control, that's so, so important. Okay, and I think we've made it to our last little topic. This has been kind of a long episode. I kind of rambled on a lot of things, but it's my first episode, guys. But yeah, discernment, when you finally have surrendered these things, when you have turned away from these idols and they start to come crawling back, maybe it's been days, months, years, weeks, whatever, and you're like, I surrendered that idol, I'm gone, and I'm gone, like that idol's gone from me. Like maybe that idol is, but if it slowly comes back into your life, creeping up, and you feel that desire again, it's really important to recognize this. Now, discernment, I believe, is officially a spiritual gift, but I'm going to say, I do think all believers, I do think all followers of Jesus, I think all believers have discernment. And I do believe some of us have, more discernment than others and are more aware, but I believe we all have it. And essentially it's a sense of something's right or wrong. Is it demonic? Is it mocking God? Is it glorifying God? Or is it doing the opposite of that? And I think we all have that. And I think it's really important we all recognize this. We discern. Right? Yeah, and also guys, the reason these idols are so hard to give up, the reason they keep crawling back to us is because they're entertaining. These idols are fun. These idols are fun and they're interesting, and we essentially really like them. And you know why? Because they're made to be fun to keep us away from God. Right? Because when we have an idol, when an idol is our foundation, when we have an idol, we put that idol between us and God. And idols are made to be fun for this reason, so they can separate us from God, so they can distance us from God. And that's why idols are so hard to get rid of. So yeah, I think that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and I'm so grateful and happy that you all are here. So yeah, I've been wanting to do this podcast for a long time. Actually a really long time, I'm saying months, but I always found excuses to blow it off and not do it. And then I slowly just started posting more and more on TikTok, and I'm like, yeah, here I am. So thank you all so much. I worked really, really hard on this episode, so please let me know what you guys think. Comment any verses, scripture, comment ideas for another podcast. If you have questions, if you have comments, I do have social media. I do have TikTok and Instagram. If you were to follow one, go follow the TikTok. I rarely post on Instagram, and it's at A Girl's Guide to God.